I need to see with my own eyes. That's what you've been saying your whole life. But what if I told you that you've had it backwards this entire time? What if your eyes don't receive light? They project it. What if vision isn't passive observation, but active creation? There's a 3,000-year-old technique that proves this, and once you understand it, you'll never look at anything the same way again. Literally. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just theory. It's a technology you can use today to reshape what you see, what you experience, and what manifests in your reality. This channel is about uncovering the hidden mechanics of consciousness, and this might be the most powerful one yet. Subscribe, let's go. Your eyes are not cameras, they're not windows, they're not passive receivers of light bouncing off objects. That's the lie they taught you in school. The mechanical model. Light hits object, bounces into eyeball, gets processed by brain, you see thing. Passive, helpless, just receiving whatever's out there. But that's not how vision actually works, and ancient mystery schools knew this 3,000 years ago. The Greeks had a concept called extramission theory. Plato, Euclid, Ptolemy, they all taught that the eyes emit rays of light that reach out and touch objects, and that's how you see them. Your eyes project outward. They don't just receive, they actively reach out and interact with the world. And before you dismiss this as primitive misunderstanding of optics, consider this. Modern quantum physics is catching up to what they knew all along. The observer effect. You've heard of it. When scientists observe particles at the quantum level, the particles change behavior. Not because the measurement tool is clumsy, because observation itself alters reality. The act of looking changes what's being looked at. Your consciousness, your attention, your observation collapses the wave function of infinite possibility into one specific outcome. You're not passively watching a fixed reality. You're actively selecting which reality becomes visible to you. Now here's where it gets wild. Your retina, the back of your eyeball where images form, doesn't just receive light, it generates light. Biophotons. Your eyes emit measurable photons, tiny particles of light radiating outward from your eyes into the space around you. Science has measured this. Your eyes are literally projecting light into the world while simultaneously receiving it. You're not just a receiver, you're a transmitter. You're broadcasting and receiving at the same time. The ancient Egyptians knew this. The Eye of Horus wasn't just a symbol, it was a map, a diagram of how consciousness interfaces with reality through vision. The eye was considered the most powerful organ because it was understood as a portal, not a window you look through, but a gateway you project through. They taught that what you focus your eyes on, you energize. What you give your visual attention to, you feed. You literally pour your life force into whatever you're looking at, and it grows in your experience. The Tibetan Buddhists have a practice called trataka, steady gazing. You fix your eyes on a single point, a candle flame, a dot on the wall, a symbol, and you hold your gaze without blinking for as long as possible. Not just staring blankly, actively focusing, consciously directing your visual attention with total presence and intention. And what happens? Your perception shifts. The object you're gazing at starts to shimmer, to pulse, to transform. Some people see colors that weren't there. Some see the object multiply or dissolve. Some enter altered states of consciousness just from holding their gaze. Why? Because you're not passively looking. You're actively engaging the quantum field with focused observation. You're collapsing probabilities. You're selecting which version of reality becomes solid in your awareness, and the more intentional your gaze, the more powerfully you affect what you're looking at. This isn't mysticism. This is applied quantum mechanics disguised as ancient spiritual practice. Let me give you the technique right now, the 3,000-year-old method that you can test today and prove to yourself that your eyes create what they see. It's simple, but it's not easy. And the results will shake you. Find an object, any object, a pen, a cup, a plant, a picture on the wall, something neutral that you have no strong feelings about. Sit comfortably. Relax your body. Now, look at the object with soft focus. Don't strain. Don't force. Just gaze at it gently, like you're looking at it with affection, like it's something precious. And here's the key. While you're looking at it, silently repeat in your mind, I am seeing you into existence. I am creating you with my attention. You are here because I observe you. Keep your gaze steady, let your eyes soften, but don't look away. Hold this for 2 to 3 minutes minimum and pay attention. Notice if the object seems to brighten. Notice if the edges start to blur or sharpen. Notice if colors intensify. Notice if the space around the object starts to shimmer or pulse. You're not imagining this. You're experiencing the direct effect of your conscious observation altering the electromagnetic field around the object. Now here's the advanced version. This is where it gets really practical. Choose something in your life you want to change. Not the object itself, but what it represents. Let's say you want more money. Find a dollar bill or a coin, or even just write the number you want on a piece of paper. Now, apply the same technique. Gaze at it softly but steadily. And while you're looking at it, don't just think about wanting it. Command it into being with your gaze. Say internally, I am seeing abundance into my reality. I am creating financial flow with my observation. Money comes to me because I focus on it. Hold your gaze. 2, 3, 5 minutes. Feel the energy move from your eyes into the object. You're not wishing. You're not hoping. You're directing. You're commanding reality to arrange itself according to what you're looking at. This works because attention is energy. Wherever you place your visual focus, you place your electromagnetic field. And your electromagnetic field shapes matter. The HeartMath Institute proved that your heart generates a measurable electromagnetic field extending 15 feet in all directions. Your brain generates measurable frequencies. And your eyes are the focusing lens. They're the laser pointer of your consciousness. You direct the beam and reality responds. Think about how you've been using your eyes your whole life. Unconsciously. Passively. Just looking at whatever's in front of you without intention, without direction, without purpose. You scroll through your phone, absorbing images of other people's lives, other people's success, other people's drama. You watch the news, staring at fear, disaster, chaos, conflict. You look in the mirror and focus on flaws, on aging, on imperfection. Every single one of those moments, you were directing your creative power. You were collapsing quantum possibilities into form, and you were creating more of what you were looking at. More comparison, more fear, more dissatisfaction, because your eyes don't just see, they create. The elite know this. Why do you think they control media? Why do you think they flood every screen with specific images? Because they know that what you look at, you create more of. They know that your visual attention is your creative power, and if they can control what you look at, they control what you create in your reality. They give you images of scarcity, so you create scarcity. They give you images of division, so you create division. They give you images of fear, so you create fear, and you do it unconsciously, thinking you're just passively watching. But you're not. You're actively creating. Every single time you look at something, you're voting for more of it with your most powerful creative tool, your vision. Now let's talk about why this was hidden from you. Why didn't they teach you in school that your eyes are creative instruments? Why did they give you the passive mechanical model instead? Because a population that understands the creative power of vision is dangerous. Imagine if everyone knew that looking at something with intention literally brings more of it into reality. Imagine if everyone stopped watching fear-based media and started gazing at beauty, abundance, and possibility. Imagine if everyone stopped staring at their problems and started focusing on solutions. The entire control system would collapse. Because you can't control people who consciously direct their visual attention toward what they want to create. The ancient Egyptians encoded this into their architecture. The pyramids weren't just tombs. They were initiation chambers. And one of the key initiations involved learning to control your gaze. There were specific chambers where initiates would sit in total darkness for days, learning to see without external light. Learning that vision comes from within, not from without. Learning that what you see is a projection of your consciousness, not a reflection of external reality. And once you mastered internal vision, once you understood that you generate the light you see by, you became a creator, you became sovereign, you became ungovernable. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali talk about drishti, focused gaze points used during meditation and practice. Different gaze points activate different states of consciousness. Gaze at the tip of your nose, you activate grounding and presence. Gaze at the space between your eyebrows, the third eye, you activate intuition and inner vision. Gaze upward toward the crown, you activate transcendence and connection to higher consciousness. They knew that where you point your eyes determines which reality you access. Your gaze is a dial, you're tuning frequencies with your eyeballs. Let me tell you about an experiment I did. I was skeptical about all this at first. I mean, it sounds crazy, right? Your eyes create reality. But I tested it. I picked an area of my life that was stuck. Relationships. I was constantly seeing the same patterns, attracting the same types of people, experiencing the same disappointments. So I tried the technique. Every morning for 21 days, I found a picture that represented the relationship I wanted, not a specific person, just the feeling, the dynamic, the energy. And I gazed at it, soft focus, steady gaze, for 5 minutes. And while I looked at it, I didn't hope, I didn't wish. I declared, I am seeing this into my reality. I am creating this with my attention. This is here because I observe it. First week, nothing. I felt ridiculous, sitting there staring at a picture like some kind of weird ritual. But I kept going. Second week, something shifted. I started noticing people differently. Conversations felt different. Opportunities appeared that weren't there before. Third week, I met someone who matched the energy of what I'd been gazing at. Not identical to the picture, but the essence, the feeling, the dynamic. It was there, and it happened naturally, effortlessly, like reality just arranged itself to match what I'd been focusing on. Because that's exactly what happened. I directed my observation, and reality complied. Now let's get into the science that supports this, because I know some of you need the rational explanation before you'll try it. Neuroscience has discovered something called neuroplasticity. Your brain physically rewires itself based on what you focus on. The neural pathways you use most frequently get stronger. The ones you don't use atrophy. What you pay attention to literally shapes the structure of your brain, and your brain determines what you perceive. Two people can look at the exact same scene and see completely different things because their brains are wired differently. Your perception isn't objective. It's constructed by your neural wiring, and your neural wiring is shaped by what you consistently focus on. So when you consciously direct your gaze at something with intention, you're not just looking at it. You're rewiring your brain to perceive more of it. You're strengthening the neural pathways that recognize it, that notice it, that attract it. You're literally changing the filtering system that determines what gets through to your conscious awareness. And because most of reality is filtered out, your brain only processes a tiny fraction of the sensory data available. Changing your filter changes your entire experience of reality. The reticular activating system. This is the part of your brain that decides what's important and what's not. It's why when you're thinking about buying a red car, you suddenly see red cars everywhere. They were always there. You just weren't noticing them because your RAS wasn't filtering for them. But once you focus on something, once you direct your visual attention toward it with intention, your RAS reprograms. It starts scanning for that thing everywhere, and you start seeing it more, experiencing it more, attracting it more, not because it magically appeared, because you tuned your perception to notice it. And in quantum terms, noticing is creating. Observation collapses possibility into reality. Here's what most people don't understand about manifestation. They think it's about visualizing in your mind with your eyes closed. Imagining what you want, feeling the feelings, hoping it appears. That's step one. That's programming your subconscious. But step two, the step everyone misses, is directing your physical gaze at representations of what you want with conscious intention. Your physical eyes are the bridge between inner vision and outer reality. You visualize internally to program the subconscious. Then you gaze externally to command the quantum field. Both are necessary. Inner vision sets the template. Outer gaze activates the manifestation. The Kabbalists knew this. They have a practice where you gaze at Hebrew letters which they consider to be condensed light, frozen energy in symbolic form. Each letter holds a specific frequency. And by gazing at the letter with intention, you activate that frequency in your field. You're not reading the letter. You're absorbing its vibration through your eyes. You're letting the light encoded in the symbol enter through your visual portal and reprogram your electromagnetic signature. And reality shifts to match the new frequency. Same principle with yantras in Hinduism. Geometric diagrams designed to be gazed at during meditation. You're not analyzing the geometry. You're letting your eyes trace the patterns, and those patterns entrain your brain waves. Sacred geometry isn't just pretty. It's functional. It's technology. And your eyes are the input device. Now let me give you the dark side of this because you need to know what's being done to you. Advertising. Propaganda, media manipulation. They know your eyes create your reality, so they control what you look at. Every ad, every image, every video you watch is designed to capture your gaze and hold it. And while you're looking, they're programming you. They're using your own creative power against you. You think you're just watching a commercial, but you're actually projecting your electromagnetic field onto images of products, celebrities, lifestyles you don't have, creating desire, creating lack, creating the feeling of incompleteness. And then you go buy the product to fill the hole you just created by looking at the ad. They weaponized your vision, and you didn't even know it was happening. Social media is the most insidious. infinite scroll, designed to capture your gaze and never release it. Every swipe, every image, you're pouring your creative energy into other people's realities. You're feeding their lives with your attention. And what happens to yours? It shrinks. Because energy flows where attention goes, and your attention is flowing into your phone 6, 8, 10 hours a day. You're creating their reality and wondering why yours feels empty. This is why the ancient initiates practiced sensory discipline. They controlled what they looked at with ruthless precision, because they knew that undisciplined vision creates chaotic reality. If you let your eyes wander unconsciously, if you look at everything and anything without intention, you're scattering your creative power in a million directions. You're creating randomness, you're manifesting chaos. But if you discipline your gaze, if you consciously choose what you look at and what you refuse to look at, you become a focused creator. Your reality becomes coherent, intentional, powerful. Let me give you a practice that will change everything. The visual fast. For one full day, control your gaze completely. No phone, no TV, no random scrolling, no staring at problems, no looking at things that make you feel lack or fear or inadequacy. Only look at things that represent what you want to create: beauty, abundance, health, joy, connection, nature, art, faces of people you love. And when you look with intention. Gaze softly, breathe, and silently declare, I am creating more of this. Do this for one day, just one, and watch what happens. Watch how different you feel. Watch what shows up in your experience the next day, because you just spent 24 hours directing your creative power with precision instead of scattering it unconsciously. Now let's talk about the third eye, because this is where inner vision and outer vision converge. The pineal gland, located in the center of your brain, is light sensitive. It responds to light even though it's buried deep inside your skull, never exposed to external light. How? Because it's not responding to external light. It's responding to the light you generate internally. The biophotons your body produces, the electromagnetic field your consciousness creates. And when you activate your third eye through practices like Tritaka, through focused gazing, you're not developing some mystical power. You're learning to see the light your own consciousness is projecting. Advanced practitioners can close their physical eyes and still see, not imagining, actually seeing, because they've developed the ability to perceive the biophotonic field their bodies generate. They're seeing the light they're creating, not the light bouncing off objects. And once you can do that, once you can see your own light, you realize the ultimate truth. There is no external reality. There's only your consciousness projecting outward and then perceiving its own projection. You're the source of the light, you're the observer, you're the creator, and the physical eyes are just the tool you use to focus and direct the light you're already generating. This is why meditation often involves closing the eyes. You're withdrawing your creative power from the external world and turning it inward. You're stopping the projection. And in that space of no external focus, you start to see what's actually there. The field of infinite possibility, the quantum soup of potential realities, all existing simultaneously, waiting for your observation to collapse them into form. And when you open your eyes again, when you direct your gaze outward with full awareness that you're projecting, not receiving, everything changes. You're no longer at the mercy of what's out there. You're the one deciding what becomes real by where you point your eyes. Let me tell you what happened when I fully understood this. I was walking down the street and I noticed I was unconsciously looking at everything. Signs, people, cars, trash, buildings, just letting my eyes drift wherever, and I realized I'm scattering my energy, I'm creating randomness. So I stopped. I softened my gaze. I started looking only at things I wanted to energize: trees, sky, people's smiles, architecture I found beautiful. And within minutes, my entire experience of the walk changed. I felt more energized, more present, happier, and people started smiling at me more. Opportunities appeared. A coffee shop I'd never noticed offering something I'd been wanting. Synchronicities. Not because the universe suddenly loved me more, because I directed my observation toward what I wanted, and reality responded by showing me more of it. Your eyes are not passive, they're active, they're creative, they're projecting your consciousness into the field and selecting which possibilities become your reality. And the 3,000-year-old technique is simply this: become conscious of where you're looking. Become intentional about what you gaze at, and understand that every moment your eyes are open, you're voting for reality to show you more of whatever you're focusing on. Here's the 6-step protocol to master this. Step 1. Morning gaze setting. First thing when you wake up, before you look at your phone, before you check messages, find something beautiful and gaze at it for 60 seconds. A plant, sunlight through the window, a piece of art, a photo of someone you love. Set your visual frequency before the world gets to program you. Step 2. Tritaka practice. Once a day, pick an object or symbol that represents something you're creating. Gaze at it without blinking for as long as you can. Start with 1 minute. Build up to 5. Focus your intention. Declare silently that you're creating this with your observation. Feel the energy move from your eyes into the object. Step 3. Conscious media consumption. Every time you're about to watch something, scroll through something, look at something on a screen, ask yourself, do I want to create more of this in my reality? If the answer is no, don't look at it. Protect your gaze like you'd protect your bank account, because your visual attention is worth more than money. It's creative power. Step 4. Problem solution gaze shift. When you catch yourself staring at a problem, at what's wrong, at what you don't want, physically shift your gaze. Look at something else. Look at a solution. Look at what you do want. Train yourself to withdraw visual attention from what you don't want to energize. Step 5. Mirror gaze. Once a day, look at yourself in the mirror, not to criticize, not to analyze, to create. Gaze at yourself with the same intention you'd gaze at something you love. And while you're looking, declare, I am seeing health into this body. I am creating vitality with my attention. I am beautiful because I observe myself as beautiful. Reprogram the most important relationship you have with your own reflection. Step 6. Evening gratitude gaze. Before sleep, find 3 things you saw today that made you feel good. Recall them visually. See them again in your mind's eye. Hold each image for 30 seconds. And as you drift off to sleep, let those images be the last thing you focus on. You're programming your subconscious to find more of what you gazed at with appreciation. Do this protocol for 30 days, just 30 days, and I promise you, your reality will shift so dramatically you'll never question the creative power of your vision again. Because you're not just changing what you see, you're changing what becomes real in your experience. You're directing the quantum field with laser precision. You're collapsing infinite possibilities into the specific outcomes you choose. And you're doing it with the most ancient, most powerful technology you possess, your eyes. Now here's what they don't want you knowing. Once you master this, once you understand that your gaze creates your reality, you become immune to their programming. They can flash images at you all day long, but if you consciously refuse to hold your gaze on them, if you immediately redirect your visual attention, they have no power. You're not absorbing their spells. You're not feeding their agenda with your creative energy. You're sovereign. You're in control of what gets created in your field. And that terrifies the systems that depend on your unconscious participation. The ancient Egyptian initiates who mastered this technique were called the illuminated ones, not because they had secret knowledge that others didn't. Because they learned to see the light they were generating, they became conscious of their own radiance. They understood that they were the source of illumination, not the receiver. And once you get that, once you experientially know that you're projecting the light you see, you can never be controlled again, because you're creating from within, not reacting to what's without. Let me tell you the most profound realization I had with this practice. I was doing Tritaka, gazing at a candle flame, and suddenly I realized, I'm not seeing the flame. The flame is showing me how my consciousness looks when it's focused. The light I'm seeing is my own awareness made visible. The flame is just a mirror. And in that moment, I understood that everything I've ever seen, every object, every person, every experience, is just my consciousness showing me itself in different forms. There's no separation. There's no external reality independent of my observation. There's only the light of awareness projecting outward and perceiving its own projections. And the eyes are the portal where inner light meets the world and creates the experience I call reality. This is why mystics throughout history have said, the kingdom of heaven is within. Not because there's some magical place inside you, because the source of everything you see is inside you. The light originates within. You project it outward. You observe it, and you call it the world. But it's you. It's always been you. Your eyes are not windows letting the world in. They're projectors broadcasting your consciousness out. And reality is the screen where your inner light becomes visible. So what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to keep scattering your gaze unconsciously, creating random chaos, feeding other people's realities with your attention? Or are you going to take control? Are you going to become the conscious director of your visual focus and start creating the reality you actually want? Because make no mistake, you're creating either way. Your eyes are creating every moment they're open. The question is, are you doing it consciously or unconsciously? With intention or on autopilot? The 3,000-year-old technique is simple. Look at what you want to create. Withdraw your gaze from what you want to diminish. Hold your focus steady. Breathe. And declare with unwavering certainty, I am creating this with my observation. That's it. That's the whole technique. Everything else is just practice and refinement. And here's the beautiful part. You can start right now. You don't need to wait. You don't need permission. You don't need special training. You just need to consciously direct your eyes towards something you want more of and hold your gaze with intention. Do it now. Stop reading for a moment. Find something in your environment that represents something good, something you want, something that makes you feel expansion, and look at it. Soft focus, steady gaze, 60 seconds. And while you're looking, silently say, I am creating more of this. Feel the shift. Feel your energy flow into it. Feel reality responding to your focused observation. You just did it. You just consciously created. And that's how simple it is. The complexity comes from undoing years of unconscious looking, from breaking the habit of letting your eyes drift wherever without intention, from disciplining yourself to guard your gaze like the sacred creative power it is. But the technique itself? Look at what you want. Create it with your attention. Simple. I want to leave you with this. You were never powerless. You were just looking at the wrong things. You were feeding problems with your attention instead of solutions. You were staring at lack instead of abundance. You were gazing at fear instead of possibility. And because your eyes create what they see, you got more problems, more lack, more fear. But now you know. Now you understand that your vision is a vote. Every glance is a command to the quantum field. Every sustained gaze is a creation in progress. And you get to choose. You always got to choose. So choose wisely. Choose consciously. Choose powerfully. Because the universe is watching what you're watching, and it will give you more of whatever you focus on. That's the law. That's the mechanism. That's the 3,000-year-old secret hiding in a plain sight, right there in your eyeballs. Your eyes are projectors. Your consciousness is the light, and reality is the screen where your inner vision becomes your outer experience. You are not seeing the world, you are seeing yourself. And once you know that, truly know it, you become the conscious artist of your own reality, painting your experience with every intentional gaze. Welcome to your visual sovereignty. The blindfold is off. The truth is visible. And you are the creator you've been searching for. It was never out there. It was always in here, projecting outward through the windows of your soul, creating the reality you call life. Now go forth and gaze consciously, create intentionally, and watch as reality bends to match the focus of your illuminated vision. Because it will. It always does. It has no choice. That's how this works. That's how it's always worked. And now you know. Let me tell you about the hidden mechanics of visual perception that science is only now beginning to understand. Your eyes don't just contain photoreceptors that respond to light. They contain magnetoreceptors, cells that detect electromagnetic fields. Birds use these to navigate during migration. And guess what? You have them too. Your eyes are literally sensing the electromagnetic signature of everything you look at. You're not just seeing reflected light. You're reading energy fields, and when you gaze at something with intention, you're not just reading its field, you're interacting with it. You're entangling with it. Your field and its field merge in that moment of focused observation. And when two fields merge, they influence each other. You change what you're looking at, and it changes you. This is quantum entanglement at the macro level happening through your vision. The double-slit experiment proved that observation affects outcomes at the quantum level. But here's what they don't tell you in physics class. It's not the measuring device that creates the effect. It's consciousness. They've done experiments where they set up the measuring equipment but don't record the results. Particles still behave like waves, but the moment a conscious observer looks at the recorded data, even days later, the wave function collapses retroactively, your consciousness reaching back through time to collapse probability into actuality. Your observation doesn't just create the present. It reorganizes the past to be consistent with what you're observing now. What does this mean for your vision? Every time you look at your current circumstances and declare, "This is how it is," you're not just observing current reality. You're reaching back through time and solidifying the chain of events that led to this moment. You're making the past consistent with your present observation. and you're projecting that trajectory forward into the future. You're creating a timeline with your gaze. This is why when you change how you look at your past, your future changes. Not because you changed what happened, because you changed which version of what happened becomes real through your observation of it. Let me give you an example. Two people experience the same childhood, same events, same circumstances. One looks back and sees trauma, victimhood, damage. The other looks back and sees lessons, strength, preparation. Same past, different observation, and their futures unfold completely differently. Why? Because the past doesn't exist as a fixed thing. It exists as a field of possible interpretations. And whichever interpretation you observe, whichever version you gaze at and declare real, that's the one that becomes your past. And your past determines your present, and your present determines your future. So by changing what you look at when you think about your past, you literally change your trajectory. This is advanced timeline shifting through visual observation, and the ancients knew this. The practice of scrying, gazing into crystal balls, mirrors, water, wasn't about seeing the future. It was about selecting the future. You gaze into the reflective surface until you see a vision. And that vision isn't a prediction. It's a possibility you're collapsing into probability through the act of observing it. You're reaching into the field of infinite potential futures, finding one you prefer, and anchoring it into manifestation by holding it in your visual awareness. The Oracle of Delphi sat in a cave with volcanic fumes, entered an altered state, and gazed into the void until visions appeared. Everyone thought she was seeing what would happen, but she wasn't predicting. She was selecting. She was choosing which timeline to energize with her observation. And because she was revered as an oracle, because kings and generals acted on her visions, her observations literally created the future. Not because she saw it coming, because she looked at it and made it real. You have the same power. You just haven't been using it consciously. Every time you imagine your future, you're scrying. Every time you visualize where you're going, what you're becoming, what you're creating, you're gazing into the field of possibility and selecting a timeline. But most people do this backwards. They look at their current reality, project it forward, and then worry about where it's heading. They're scrying the continuation of what they don't want. They're observing the worst-case timeline into existence. Flip it. When you think about your future, don't project from current circumstances. Instead, find the timeline you want in the field of infinite possibility. See it clearly. Gaze at it internally with the same focus you'd use in Tritaka. Hold that vision steady and declare, I am observing this future into reality. I am collapsing this possibility into certainty with my focused awareness. You're not hoping it happens. You're making it happen through the mechanics of observation. Now let's talk about peripheral vision versus focused vision, because this is where most people leak their creative power without knowing it. Your central vision, the focused narrow beam of attention, is conscious. You control where you point it, but your peripheral vision is largely unconscious. It's taking in everything around the edges, feeding information to your subconscious without your awareness. And your subconscious is creating based on that peripheral input, just as much as your conscious mind creates from focused input. This is why environment matters so much. You might consciously focus on your goals, your vision board, your affirmations. But if your peripheral vision is constantly absorbing clutter, chaos, images of lack, reminders of limitation, Your subconscious is creating that reality faster than your conscious mind can create the one you want. Your focused vision and peripheral vision are fighting each other. And peripheral vision usually wins because it's feeding the subconscious 24/7, while focused vision only engages when you consciously direct it. Solution: curate your environment like your life depends on it. Because it does. Everything within your peripheral field of vision, when you're home, when you're working, when you're relaxing, it should represent what you want to create. Colors that make you feel abundant. Objects that remind you of success. Images of health, beauty, joy, connection. If you can see it peripherally, it's programming you subconsciously. So make sure it's programming what you want, not what you're trying to escape. I cleared my entire living space, got rid of anything that carried the energy of struggle, lack, or past limitation, replaced it with things that made me feel expansive just looking at them. Not expensive things, just intentional things, colors I loved, art that moved me, plants that felt alive, books that represented who I was becoming, and within weeks my internal state shifted. Not because I was trying to feel different, because my peripheral vision was constantly feeding my subconscious images of beauty, growth, and possibility. My environment was creating me while I wasn't even consciously looking at it. Now here's a practice that will blow your mind: reverse blinking. Normal blinking is unconscious. Your eyes close for a fraction of a second. You miss a tiny slice of visual input. No big deal. But what if you made blinking conscious? What if every time you blink, you use that micro moment of darkness to reset your observation? Here's how it works. You're looking at something you don't want. A bill, a problem, a limitation. Blink. In that fraction of a second of darkness, internally declare, I release this observation. Open your eyes and immediately shift your gaze to something you do want. Blink again. Internally declare, I anchor this observation. You're using the blink as a reset button, closing one observation, opening another. Conscious editing of your visual reality in real time. Do this 20, 30, 50 times a day. Every time you catch yourself looking at something that creates contraction, use the blink shift technique. Blink, release, shift, blink, anchor. You're training your eyes to become tools of conscious selection rather than passive reception. And after a few weeks of this, something incredible happens. Your eyes start doing it automatically. You'll find yourself unconsciously looking away from limitation and toward possibility. Your vision becomes self-correcting. You've programmed your eyes to seek and create what you want. Let's talk about eye contact, because this is where visual creation gets interpersonal. When you make eye contact with someone, you're not just looking at them. You're merging electromagnetic fields. Your heart field and their heart field overlap. Your brain entrains with their brain. You synchronize. And in that moment of synchronized observation, you're both creating each other. What you see in them becomes more real for them. What they see in you becomes more real for you. This is why the gaze of someone who loves you is healing. They're observing your highest potential, your beauty, your worth, and their observation calls it forth. It makes it real. But the opposite is also true. The gaze of someone who judges you, diminishes you, sees you as less than, that observation also affects you. Unless you're conscious, unless you refuse to accept their observation as valid. This is where visual sovereignty becomes interpersonal defense. When someone looks at you with judgment, with dismissal, with limitation, you have a choice. You can unconsciously accept their observation and let it collapse your wave function into smallness. Or you can consciously reject it and maintain your own observation of who you are. Here's the technique. When you feel someone's limiting gaze on you, internally declare, "I do not accept your observation of me. I am the primary observer of my reality. Your gaze has no power over my becoming." And then shift your internal vision to how you see yourself: powerful, worthy, sovereign. Hold that internal gaze steady. You're overriding their observation with your own. You're claiming primary creative authority over your own existence. And their gaze loses power. It doesn't stick. It doesn't shape you. Because you're observing yourself more strongly than they're observing you. Conversely, when you look at people, be conscious of what you're creating in them with your gaze. Are you looking at their limitations, their fears, their smallness? Then you're helping create more of that in them. Or are you looking at their potential, their beauty, their highest possibility? Then you're calling that forth. Your gaze is a gift. Use it to create the best in others. See people as they could be, not as they are, and watch them start becoming it. Not because you have power over them, because your loving observation gives them permission to collapse into their highest potential. I started doing this with everyone I interacted with. Cashiers, strangers, friends, family. I consciously looked at them and thought, "I see your light. I see your beauty. I see your divine nature." And the shift in how people responded to me was instant. People smiled more, opened up more, offered help, connection, opportunities. Not because I became more charming, because my gaze was creating safety and recognition in them. I was seeing them truly, and they felt it. And that feeling made them want to be around me, help me, connect with me. Your gaze creates relationship reality just as much as it creates personal reality. Now let's go deep into the spiritual mechanics of this. Many traditions talk about the evil eye, the idea that certain people's gaze can curse you, harm you, create bad luck, and it's real. Not because they have magical powers, because they're unconsciously projecting negative observation onto you. And if you're not aware, if you unconsciously accept their observation, you'll start manifesting what they're seeing. Their envious gaze observes you failing, struggling, losing what you have. And if you don't counter that observation with your own, their vision can become your reality. This is why cultures developed evil eye protection, amulets, prayers, rituals. They understood that vision is creative and that you need to protect yourself from negative observation. But you don't need an amulet. You just need awareness. You need to be the primary observer of your own life. You need to gaze at yourself with more frequency, more intensity, more certainty than anyone else gazes at you. Then, external observation, positive or negative, becomes irrelevant. You're the dominant creative force in your experience because you're observing yourself most powerfully. The practice. Every morning, spend 3 minutes gazing at yourself in the mirror, not looking for flaws, neat analyzing, observing yourself into being. See yourself healthy, see yourself powerful, see yourself abundant, see yourself loved, and declare, "I am the primary observer of my existence. My observation of myself is stronger than anyone else's observation of me. I create myself with my own gaze." You're establishing visual dominance over your own reality. You're making sure that no matter what anyone else sees when they look at you, your observation is the one that manifests. Here's something wild that quantum physics has discovered. Delayed choice experiments. They shoot a photon through a setup where it has to decide whether to behave as a wave or particle. but they don't set up the measuring device until after the photon has already made the choice. And somehow, the photon knows. It behaves according to how it will be observed in the future, even though that observation hasn't happened yet. The future observation reaches back and determines past behavior. Time isn't linear at the quantum level. Observation transcends time. What does this mean for you? When you observe your future self, when you gaze at who you're becoming with total certainty, that future observation reaches back into the present and starts reorganizing your current reality to match. You don't have to figure out how to get from here to there. You just have to observe there so clearly, so certainly, that the present rearranges itself to create the path. Your future observation is already creating your present circumstances. You just have to hold the gaze steady. This is why visioning works. Why athletes visualize perfect performance. Why entrepreneurs see their success before it happens. They're not daydreaming. They're engaging in delayed choice observation. They're looking at their future so clearly that it reaches back and creates the present that leads to it. But most people do this weakly. They hope, they wish, they imagine vaguely. That's not observation. That's fantasy. Observation is clear, detailed, certain. You see it like it's already real. You gaze at it with the same solidity you gaze at the chair you're sitting in. And that level of observational certainty collapses the timeline into manifestation. Let me give you the advanced protocol for future self-observation. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. Build the image of your future self in your mind's eye. Not what you'll look like. Who you'll be. See yourself embodying the qualities, the confidence, the wisdom, the power. Make it so clear you could reach out and touch it. Now open your eyes and find a spot on the wall. Gaze at that spot and project the image of your future self onto it. See your future self standing there, looking back at you. Hold the gaze. Eye contact with your future self. And as you hold it, feel yourself merging with that version. Feel the timeline collapse. Feel yourself becoming what you're observing. Do this for 5 minutes daily. You're literally pulling your future into your present through sustained observation. Now let's talk about eye dominance and how it affects your creative power. Just like you're right-handed or left-handed, you have a dominant eye. One eye is stronger, more precise, more connected to your conscious awareness. You can test which one. Extend your arm, make a small circle with your thumb and finger, look through the circle at a distant object with both eyes open. Now close your right eye. If the object stays centered, your left eye is dominant. If it jumps out of the circle, your right eye is dominant. Why does this matter? Your dominant eye is your creative eye. It's the one more directly connected to your conscious intention. When you're doing focused gazing practices, Tritaka, future self-observation, use your dominant eye as the primary projector. Some advanced practitioners even close their non-dominant eye during manifestation visualization to concentrate all their observational power through the dominant eye. It's like using a rifle instead of a shotgun, more focused, more precise, more powerful. Here's a technique that combines everything. The infinity gaze. You need a mirror. Stand in front of it. Focus on your dominant eye in the reflection. Now recognize that your reflection is also looking back at you with its dominant eye. You're creating an infinity loop, your eye observing your reflected eye, which is observing you back. Infinite recursion of observation. And in that loop you make a declaration. I am creating myself with this observation. Every version of me across all timelines is collapsing into this moment. I am the observer and the observed, the creator and the created, the source and the manifestation. Hold this gaze for as long as you can. You might feel dizzy. You might feel like you're merging with your reflection. Good. That's the boundaries dissolving. That's you recognizing that there's no separation between observer and observed. You're both. You're the infinity loop of consciousness observing itself into existence. And when you truly get that, when you feel it experientially through the infinity gaze, you realize that you've been creating yourself all along. Every version of you that's ever existed was you observing yourself into that form. And you can change the observation any moment you choose. Let's address the skeptics for a moment, because I know some of you are thinking, this is too woo-woo. This can't be real. But consider this. Placebo effect. Scientifically proven, repeatedly demonstrated. People take sugar pills, believe they're medicine, and heal. The belief, the internal observation that I'm taking medicine, I'm getting better, creates measurable physical changes. Tumors shrink. Pain disappears. Diseases go into remission. From sugar pills. Because the observation of healing is more powerful than the chemistry. That's mainstream science admitting that observation creates physical reality. Or consider the Pygmalion effect in education. Teachers are told certain students are gifted, others are average. The students are actually randomly assigned. But the teacher's observation, their expectation, their gaze upon these students creates reality. The gifted students perform better, not because they are gifted, because they're being observed as gifted, and that observation calls forth higher performance. The teacher's gaze literally creates intelligence in the students. That's peer-reviewed research proving that observation shapes reality in measurable ways. Your eyes do the same thing. Every moment, to everything you look at, you're either creating what you want or what you don't want, but you're creating. Always. The question is, are you doing it consciously? Let me tell you about a moment that changed everything for me. I was in a difficult situation. Financial pressure, relationship stress, health issues. Everything felt heavy. And I realized I was spending hours every day looking at the problems. Checking my bank account, reading worried texts, Googling symptoms. I was gazing at limitation for hours and at possibility for minutes, and I was wondering why nothing was changing. So I did something radical. I reversed the ratio. Every time I felt the urge to check the problem, I forced myself to gaze at the solution instead. I couldn't check my bank account without first spending 5 minutes gazing at images of abundance. I couldn't read the worried text without first looking at images of peaceful connection. I couldn't Google symptoms without first gazing at myself in the mirror and seeing perfect health. I made solution gazing mandatory before problem gazing, and within 2 weeks every single situation shifted. Money came from unexpected sources. The relationship tension dissolved. The symptoms faded, not because I ignored the problems, because I stopped feeding them with my most powerful creative tool, my sustained visual attention. Now here's the practice that ties everything together: the daily gaze inventory. Every evening, take 5 minutes and mentally review where your eyes went that day. What did you look at most? Your phone, problems, other people's lives on social media, news, lack? Or did you look at beauty, possibility, solutions, your goals, your vision? Be honest. Tally it up. If you spent more time gazing at what you don't want than what you do want, you know why your reality isn't shifting. You're voting for the wrong things with your observation. Then set an intention for tomorrow. Tomorrow, I will consciously direct my gaze toward what I want to create. I will limit gaze time on problems to the minimum necessary for practical action, and I will maximize gaze time on solutions, beauty, and desired outcomes. And then do it. Track yourself. Set phone reminders. Every 2 hours. What am I looking at right now? Is this what I want to create? Course correct immediately if needed. After 30 days of daily gaze inventory and conscious redirection, your entire reality will have restructured. Not because you did anything magical, because you stopped unconsciously creating what you don't want and started consciously creating what you do want. With the same tool, your eyes. Here's something the ancients knew that we've forgotten. Sacred spaces are designed to control your gaze. Temples, cathedrals, mosques. The architecture forces your eyes upward, toward height, toward light, toward the divine. You can't walk into a cathedral without looking up. And when you look up, your consciousness rises. Your frequency elevates. You feel awe, expansion, transcendence. Not because the building is magical, because it controls where you look, and where you look determines what you feel and what you become in that moment. You can do this in your own space. Design visual pathways that guide your eyes toward what elevates you. When you enter your home, what's the first thing you see? Is it clutter, bills, reminders of stress, or is it something beautiful, inspiring, uplifting? That first gaze sets your frequency for the entire time you're in that space. Control it, curate it, make it intentional. Same with your workspace. What's directly in front of you when you work? A blank wall, a cluttered desk, or something that reminds you why you're doing this, what you're creating, who you're becoming? Your work environment should be a visual manifestation ritual. Every object within your visual field should be there because it supports what you're creating, not because it randomly ended up there. Let's go into chromotherapy, the ancient practice of healing with color. Different colors carry different frequencies, and when you gaze at a color, you absorb its frequency through your eyes. Red stimulates, energizes, activates. Blue calms, soothes, opens communication. Green heals, balances, harmonizes. Yellow awakens mental clarity and joy. Purple connects to spiritual awareness and intuition. Orange ignites creativity and passion. Use this consciously. If you need energy, gaze at red for 60 seconds. Let your eyes absorb the frequency. If you need calm, gaze at blue. If you need healing, gaze at green. You're not just seeing color, you're taking in vibrational medicine through your visual portal. The Egyptians had healing temples with colored rooms. You'd be placed in a specific colored room based on what you needed to heal. And you'd spend hours gazing at that color until your system synchronized with its frequency. Then you'd be healed. Not from medicine, from observation of frequency. You can create micro-color healing sessions throughout your day. Keep colored cards, fabrics, or images accessible. Feeling anxious? 60-second blue gaze. Feeling depleted? 60-second red gaze. Feeling scattered? 60-second green gaze. You're doing energy medicine through your eyes. Fast, free, and powerfully effective. Now let me reveal the ultimate secret of visual creation: simultaneity. Your eyes can observe multiple timelines simultaneously, not sequentially, simultaneously. When you gaze at something, you're not just seeing one version of it. You're seeing all possible versions collapsed into the one your observation selects. That object exists in infinite possible states, and your gaze chooses which one becomes real in your experience. This means you can look at your current reality and simultaneously observe the reality you're creating. You don't have to close your eyes and visualize elsewhere. You can look at what is and see what's becoming overlaid on top of it. You're observing both timelines at once, the current and the emerging, and by holding both in your awareness, you create a bridge. You're collapsing the gap between here and there. Practice. Look at your current bank balance. Don't close your eyes. Keep them open, looking at the number. Now, overlay the number you want. See it right there, occupying the same space. Both numbers exist. You're observing both simultaneously. Hold that dual observation. Feel the timeline shift happening in real time. You're not denying current reality. You're adding desired reality to it. And where attention goes, energy flows. The desired number starts pulling energy, circumstances, and manifestations toward it. Because you're feeding it with observation while simultaneously withdrawing observation from the current number. This is advanced timeline collapsing. You're compressing the journey by observing the destination while standing in the starting point. You're creating a quantum superposition in your awareness, and reality has to resolve the superposition. It will collapse into whichever observation you hold most consistently. If you keep observing lack, lack wins. If you keep observing abundance overlaid on the lack, abundance wins. You're deciding the outcome with the frequency and intensity of your gaze. Let me give you the final integration practice. The Master Gaze Protocol. This is everything combined into one daily ritual. Morning, immediately upon waking. Before anything else, gaze at yourself in the mirror for 3 minutes. See yourself as already whole, powerful, abundant, healthy, loved. Establish primary observation of yourself. Throughout the day, set 8 reminders on your phone. Every time it goes off, pause. Notice what you're looking at. Ask, is this creating what I want? If no, shift your gaze immediately. Blink release, shift blink anchor. Afternoon, Tritaka. Pick one object or image representing your primary creation. Gaze at it for 5 minutes without blinking. Project your intention into it. Feel your electromagnetic field merge with it. Evening review. Mentally review where your eyes went today. Calculate the ratio of problem gazing to solution gazing. Adjust tomorrow's intention accordingly. Before sleep. Gaze at 3 things that made you feel alive today. Hold each image for 30 seconds. Fall asleep with those images in your awareness. Do this protocol for 90 days, not 30, not 60. 90, because that's how long it takes to completely rewire your visual habits from unconscious to conscious, from passive to creative, from random to intentional. After 90 days, you won't need the protocol anymore. Conscious gazing will be your default. Your eyes will automatically seek what creates what you want and avoid what creates what you don't want. You'll be a master of visual creation, and your reality will reflect that mastery in every area. Now I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like a lot of work. And yes, in the beginning, conscious gazing requires effort, because you're undoing decades of unconscious looking. You're rewiring deep neural patterns. But here's the truth. You're already putting in the work. You're already gazing all day long. You're already creating with your eyes. You're just doing it unconsciously, creating random results, wondering why life feels out of control. Conscious gazing isn't more work. It's the same work done intentionally, and the results are exponentially more powerful. Think about it this way. You're going to spend 12, 14, 16 hours today with your eyes open, looking at things. That's happening whether you're conscious or not. The question is, will you look randomly and create randomly? Or will you look intentionally and create intentionally? Same time investment, completely different outcomes. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start seeing results, once you watch your reality shift in response to your conscious gazing, it stops feeling like work. It becomes exciting. It becomes a game. Where will I direct my creative power today? What will I observe into existence? You start looking forward to it. You start protecting your gaze fiercely because you've seen what it can do. You've experienced the direct correlation between what you look at and what shows up in your life. And once you've experienced that, you can never go back to unconscious looking. First, smash that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning. Second, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what's the first thing you're going to consciously gaze at after finishing this. What reality are you going to start observing into existence today? I want to know. I'm reading every comment. Let's build a community of conscious creators who refuse to look unconsciously ever again. You are the observer. You are the creator. And your eyes are the bridge between infinite possibility and manifest reality. Now stop watching and start creating. Your new reality is waiting for your gaze.